Hello, I'm Dave and this is Logan, out once again for a walk in the New Forest. Thanks for joining us. Now, today we're at the village of Breamore in Hampshire. It's located about 10 miles south of Salisbury and 3 miles north of Fordingbridge. The A338 passes through the village. And we're going to be walking a roughly 6.5 mile circular route to the east of Breamore, going along an old disused railway line, crossing the river Avon twice, passing an Iron Age hill fort, exploring the delightful New Forest village of Woodgreen, and also looking at some other interesting things along the way. Now, I'm filming at the end of November, so it should be a winter's walk, but the sun is out. It really is quite glorious. The temperature's about 14 degrees. It's crazy, so it should be great for a walk. Do come along with us. Now, it looks as though I'm in a railway station, and I am, but there's no trains coming along this line. I'm at the old disused railway station at Breamore. Isn't that quite charming? So the station opened here in 1866. It was on the Salisbury and Dorset Junction Railway line that basically links Salisbury up with Wimborne. I think the whole line was about 19 miles long of single track, and it was mainly used by day trippers. But the line and indeed the station closed in 1964. But there's still 2 miles of disused railway down to Burgate, which is now a public footpath, and that's what we'll be heading along initially. The station's about halfway along it. But oh, it's so sweet. And just panning around, that's I think that's the old station master's house over there. And then just a little bit further along, they built 5 houses back in around about 2015. Actually on the platform, but they actually do have a railway cottage look about them, don't they? And I think they were especially affordable houses as well. Right, let's leave Breamore station. I really do love it. It's actually located on the eastern side of the village, and the path that we're going to be headed along, the old disused railway line itself, is actually on the New Forest National Park boundary. So on my right, or to the west, is just outside the park, but the bulk of our walk is going to be inside the New Forest National Park. Well, it is lovely that they've still made use of the land here with the houses, and just in between the two sets of houses is this old building here, and on an 1896 map it shows us I think Avon Valley Dairies. Looks as though it's a residential property now. I'm not 100% sure. Just a little pit stop to show you where we've come down. This is following the old track there. Lovely, lovely route actually. From time to time you get the odd reminder of its former use. Just in front of me here, the old concrete posts for the fencing that was either side of the track. And then, well, you can see the cars there. So we're running parallel with the main road from Fordingbridge up to Salisbury. I'm loving this little bit of disused track, and it's great that Logan can be off lead as well. Just a heads up for anybody that might be doing this walk, you'd probably need a good pair of walking boots. It's fairly firm underneath, but quite a bit of grass either side, and obviously if it's wet, your feet are going to get wet. Right, we can probably hear a busy road, and at this point we're just about to approach Burgate, or Burgate split in two. You've got Upper Burgate and Lower Burgate, and at Upper Burgate, at Burgate Cross, the old line crosses the road and carries on westwards. So we're going to say goodbye to the old line and instead carry on southwards to Lower Burgate. It is alongside of a busy road, which I won't film for obvious reasons, but there is a good, nice, safe footpath. Well, here we are at Burgate Cross, and you can see where that tree is where the track came and then crossed the road here, and then it sort of carries on, as I say, westwards. And so you can see there's a nice path alongside the road, so we're going to be safe going down to Lower Burgate. I think I'm going to regret having the gilet today, although there is a bit of a wind now. Okay, well, we've made our way to Lower Burgate, which is just on the outskirts of Fording Bridge, and now going to head eastwards, and I'm going through a place called Burgate Manor Farm, which as well as being a working farm is also, there are holiday cottages and holiday lets here as well. The name Burgate, I think it's Old English for fortification, or gate by a fortification, so I guess that might have something to do with the hill fort that we'll be seeing later on. Not 100% sure. Wow, look at this. An old suspension bridge, and it is old. I think it was erected in the late 40s, early 50s, and it's made of reused parts of a Bailey bridge. Now, a Bailey bridge is a type of portable prefabricated truss bridge developed in 1940 by the British for military use in the Second World War, and it saw extensive use by British, Canadian and American military engineering units. And I was reading that, well, the big advantage of it was that it required very little in the way of special tools or heavy equipment to assemble it. It could all be carried in trucks and lifted into place by hand. And of course, the bridge is going to take us over the magnificent river Avon, which is flowing quite smoothly this morning. It's got two sources. The western arm rises east of Devizes, and the eastern arm rises east of Pewsey, and then the two arms sort of meet at Upavon, which is north of Salisbury, and then well, the river flows through Salisbury and then south out to sea at Christchurch. It's 60 miles long and well, thought to contain more species of fish than any other river in England. Well, according to a book that John Wright wrote in 2003. And we're also now on the Avon Valley path, which is the 34-mile long distance path from Salisbury down to Christchurch. I'll tell you what, this suspension bridge is quite bouncy and wobbly. So the next part of our walk, having crossed over the Avon, is basically across these floodplains, and we're going to be heading towards that ridge in the far distance and the farm buildings there. I think it's Folds Farms. I tell you, it's fascinating as I'm making my way across this floodplain or water meadows, and it does flood from time to time, I can assure you. But I've looked at an old 1896 map. It looked as though there were many more channels than there are now. For instance, just by me here, On that old map there's quite a big channel, but these days it looks as though it's silted up. But I say it is your typical water meadow, so very, very fertile. So in the summer months it's very good area for making hay and putting animals out. Just before we come into Foulds Farm, just over the distance there, I don't know if this is coming across on the camera or not, but the colours on the trees there, real late autumnal sort of shades, the golds, the browns and the yellows catching the sunshine. Gorgeous. Oh, what an enchanting little stream just as we make our way through the farm. A little babbling waterfall there. I guess it makes its way through to the River Avon to the south. So pretty. Well, a New Forest walk wouldn't be a New Forest walk without some New Forest ponies. A couple here dozing in the morning sunshine. Of course, they got their thick woolly winter coats on now, as well as their reflective collars to keep them safe at night when they're near roads. Right, we are now going to start heading northwards, and on the left hand side are the Castle Hill earthworks. It really is quite gorgeous through here. So I've got the earthworks on my left, and this is a God's Hill wood on my right, and again these colours. I think one of my favourite times of the year. You just have to just stop for a few minutes and just take it all in. Well, just behind me here are the earthworks at Castle Hill. Now, I did do a video walk that started from here in the past and went into the history of it in quite detail. So if you want to know more about it, do check that up. But I'll give some very brief details anyway. It basically started life as a Bronze Age burial mound, and then became an Iron Age hill fort, and then became a ringwork and bailey castle, which was a type of castle that appeared just before the Norman conquest and continued to be built during the late 11th century and 12th century. This one was a ringwork castle with no motte and 2 outer baileys. But unfortunately over the years there's been a lot of gravel extraction, and so trying to make out what era belongs to what era has been very difficult for historians. But it's well worth exploring around. We certainly had a lot of fun when we did our walk, whenever it was, a couple of years ago now. Wow, another pit stop, and I think you'll understand why. How about that for a view? We're at the top of Castle Hill. A viewpoint here. There's a handy little car park actually and a bench, but that's looking down into the valley below the River Avon, and in the very far distance that's Bremer House, and we've actually done a walk that started there, so if you haven't seen that one, do check that one out as well. It's hard to find words, isn't it? Well, I've just dropped down off Castle Hill into Woodgreen, one of those delightful New Forest villages full of pretty cottages and houses. Let's have a little exploration. Well, this is the old Methodist chapel. It shows on an 1896 map, but I think it's a holiday cottage these days, not 100% sure. Well, I've just crossed the rather tiny little village green. What one of these telephone boxes that hasn't got a telephone in it, but looks as though, that's good. It's little sort of information boards and details of the history of the village. And this is the Horse and Groom pub I'm not sure how old it is. It appears on an 1896 map, and I believe it was originally 2 cottages. I'm quite busy today on a Saturday lunchtime. Well, next to the pub is the church, St Boniface Church. I think the building dates from about 1913, 1914, when it was originally a church reading room, but it was dedicated as a church in 1949 and then extended to its present size in 1963. And then right next to it is this rather charming little village hall that was built in 1930. And it really is quite fascinating because its walls are actually decorated with murals. A grant was obtained from the Carnegie Trust for a couple of graduates from the Royal College of Art, Edward Payne and Robert Baker, to prepare sketches and then actually paint the murals. And well, the paintings depict life as it was then, and something like 50 locals are featured. And I believe it took something like 18 months to complete. Well, although sadly the village hall is closed, which is a shame because I'd have loved to have seen those murals, the little church is open, so it gives us the opportunity of having a little peep inside. And interesting feature just above the altar, looking up, the painting SB, that must be St Boniface. Oh, what a pretty place Woodgreen is. Okay, so we're now going to rejoin the Avon Valley path, the signpost behind me, continuing heading northwards towards Hale. Well, this is about as far north as we're going on the walk on the eastern side of the river, just about to cross over the river very shortly. Just behind me here is Hale Church. Now, we had a look at this in fine detail when we did a walk at Hale about 3 years ago, as well as the house which is next to the church. So I'll just go through it in very brief details for you. Basically, there's been a church here since Saxon times, and the foundations of this church were laid in the 14th century by Bremer Priory. I'll be talking about the priory later on in the walk. At that stage, it was a thatched building, but the whole church was rebuilt in the early 17th century and again into the 18th century and re-roofed in the 19th century. But say both the house and the church, massive amount of history. So do check out the video that I did about Hale. And if I just slowly turn around to the right up on the hill, you can see the outline of the quite magnificent Hale house. I didn't think it was really dog-dip weather today, but it just shows you how warm it is, the end of November. Some fresh water for you there. Up to chest height today. And there's the bridge that we've just crossed over, crossing the River Avon for the second time. So we're going to start heading westwards now to South Charford. What a beautiful scene. It looks as though Logan's quite happy, just paddling away. So should we leave him to it? Come on, fella. Oh, it's so beautiful today with the reflections. I mean, the sun is starting to begin to drop now. Probably only got a couple of hours of sunlight left, but even so, quite a bit of reflection off the water there. Well, we've finally made it to South Charford. We've had an interesting route to get here. I'll put a map up on screen of what I thought is the route that I've taken. It was a bit tricky. There were a complete lack of way markers along the way. But anyway, we're here. And it's a very small settlement. These days it's just a few houses and a couple of farms, I think. And then you've got North Charford to the north and northeast. But it's an area that's associated with Cerdics Ford, which was mentioned a couple of times in the Anglo-Saxon Chronicles. And indeed, one of the entries stated that in 519 AD, Cerdic, who was king of the Anglo-Saxons, together with his son Cernic, had a battle here with the Britons, and they won the battle, a very significant one at that. And as a result of that, I believe the Wessex Saxons became established. Whether this place was Cerdic's Ford, no one can be absolutely sure. North Charford was recorded as Cerdiford in the Domesday Book. But if the battle did take place here, well, that could be why the Hampshire-Wiltshire border was established. It's not too far from here. But a little bit closer in time was the fact that there once was a chapel here. Now, at the time of the Domesday Book, South Charford was fairly large, with 24 households, and a chapel is thought to have been built in 1404. But unfortunately it was in ruins by the mid-18th century, and the site is thought to have been in a field to the northwest of the farm. They're saying, well, the field today is occupied by a large yew tree. Anyway, we need to just carry on a little bit further westwards to rejoin that disused railway for our homeward journey. I should point out that I think temporarily we've popped outside of the New Forest National Park, so let's pop back in. Okay, well, now back on the disused railway line, heading south back towards Breamore Station. Oh, what a lovely sight. In the late afternoon sun, a couple of deer. Trying to keep the camera steady. I'm using the Canon zoom, so the picture might be a bit grainy and unsteady, but it's still a lovely sight. Very peaceful. Well, the last thing to look at before we pull into Breamore Station, just behind me to the east of me is a field. I think it's called Priory Field, and if you look on an 1896 map, it shows that it was the site once of Breamore Priory. It was originally founded around the time of Henry I, what was he, 1100 to 1135, but when the dissolution of monasteries came around, the manor and all the area around here was handed over to a chap called Hugh Courtney and his wife, and well, there's nothing left of the priory now. I think they did some excavations in the 19th century, late 19th century, but all they found was a few graves and I think a little bit of the cloisters. Well, folks, we've made it back to Breamore Station. This time we're on the eastern platform. We hope you enjoyed the walk. If you did, please do give us a thumbs up and a like, and do leave a comment, and do check out our Facebook page, Dave's Countryside Walks. We've had a super walk today, and as the sun sets in the west, we're off to the Bat and Ball pub for a pint of local ale and a toasted sandwich. So till we meet again, thanks for watching, and cheerio. Good boy.